It was the end of October, and I finally managed to get my daily schedule down enough to do a weekend fishing trip. Fishing time, eh? It was the way I separated myself from all the pressures of life. You booked us in your uncle's jungle. She looked nice in the pictures on the internet. The road I wanted to reach the cabin was the narrow Troppy road. I arrived at the cabin and the sun was still rising. The atmosphere was clean, the air was fresh, and the forest was completely silent. The only sound I could hear was the sound of my boots moving, and I was removing the bags from the Arab. The stillness was strange. I did not hear birds, nor would we find them running on the trees. Even the paper did not move, as if the forest stood still in time. I shrugged my shoulders as if I was surprised, and I completed and entered the cabin. It was very simple. One room with a small kitchen and one bed, and it had a heater. The place was much more brutal than what was visible in the pictures. But I said, it's okay, it's okay. I unpacked my bag, brought the gun, and looked out into the forest. I walked north looking for any signs of deer. The hour passed, but I didn't find anything. I had hunted before in this area and it was full of wild animals. Now I can't even hear the sound of insects. The feeling was disturbing, but I continued so as not to waste the trip. Finally, when the sun was setting and I was done, I was about to return the cabin. I heard voices in front of me. I ran quickly in the hope of catching the animal before it escapes, but what I saw, it was entirely different. About 50 people away, there was a group of people standing around a fire. There were 6 or 7 people wearing black robes and coverings. They were standing in a circle and muttering in a low voice and cheating in a language I had never heard before. I froze in my place. These people did not worry about me. They were moving together and muttering strange words. My heart was beating fast. I held the gun firmly. I knew that these people were dangerous. I began to retreat slowly, step by step. In any branch of a tree and I made any sound, I never felt I was far enough away. I ran as fast as I could to the cab. My brain was spinning with 1,000 questions. Who are these people? What are they doing here? In the middle of the forest, I arrived at the cabin quickly and ran to the door. I took out the key and grabbed the ukra, but I found the door opening with me. The door was awkward, even though I was sure that I had closed it well. Before my stomach came out, it hurt me with terror as I entered the interior of the cabin, which was dark. I turned on the light and I saw my bag lying upside down on the floor, and all I needed was the sleeping bag on the bed. It was choppy in the text of the bed. Someone was inside the cabin and I wasn't there. I stayed in the cabin with the rifle in my hand, making sure that there was no one hiding inside. When I was sure that the place was empty, I closed all the doors and windows again, and checked on them more than once. I gathered my things and was ready to get in the car and escape from this place, and suddenly the world began to rain. Not light rain. It's as if there is stripping water pouring over the cabin. The thunder was constantly striking. I thought about the dirt road I came from, and I thought that I don't want to risk and walk on it in this storm, even if it means that I will remain trapped in this forest. I cooked some food on the stove, but I didn't feel hungry. Every sound outside scared me, and I think of the strange people I see in these scary black circles and who broke into my cabin. Tiredness began to take hold of me. I went to bed with the gun still in my hand. My nerves did not allow me to relax completely, but in the end I fell asleep. I heard voices. At first I thought that in my dream the hum was low, as if it were lost in the sound of the rain hitting my chest, but while I was above and sitting in my place, the sound began to rise. I grabbed the gun and approached the window. They were outside the same group that I saw in the forest. They were standing around the cabin in a wide circle. Even with the rain and the guard of the cabin, I could hear their strange determination. My whole name. I feel as if I am electrified. My heart was beating fast. I opened the window with all my strength and I shouted at them, "Walk away from here immediately. Nobody move. Please continue their humming." I shouted again, "Walk or I will hit the fire." I closed the net and raised my weapon from behind the garment. I picked up my cell phone and called the police. They told me they would send me a car as soon as I spent 20 terrifying minutes watching them from behind the car. 5 minutes before the police arrived, the people in Jalalivsuda disappeared among the trees. The police arrived and they preferred to wrap around the cab and turn around, but there were no traces of people. This was one of the soldiers who brought me back to the city and assured me that they were often children joking and playing pranks. I wanted to believe them, but inside I felt that something much more dangerous happened tonight, something that no one knew about. I was living in a rural area, and my father took me hunting for the first time when I was still a child after we walked in carts for a long distance away from home. The road branched off and remained very narrow. My father told me to walk on my feet about 1 kilometer along one road to reach the hunting hut with a red ribbon on it as he walked on the other road. He told me that it is best for each of us to stay in a hut alone so that we can remain more calm, and we have a better chance we see the deer. I was confident in myself when I was in the forest, but I had never entered the depth of the trees. There she was bigger and Adam than I was used to. There were fewer bushes because the large trees acted like an umbrella covering the whole place. The sounds there were louder and more than ever I had heard before. There was not a single moment without the sound of a bird or something moving for the first time in my life. I felt that this forest is alive, and that I am the hunter who enters to hunt the great beast in its heart. The creatures I saw were treated like spies. She stares from afar and then runs as if she is going to report my whereabouts. Who is answering him? I didn't know, but I had a gun, and I felt that I would be able to catch any danger if they tried to get close to me. When I saw the red ribbon on the hut, finally, the sun had risen for more than an hour, paralyzing the red ribbon of gazelles. I'm not sure if the deer can take care of him or not. After that, I entered the hut to warm myself. Today was still beginning. I was supposed to wait until 4 o'clock, and then come back to meet my parents before the sun went down. But that was still too early. At that time, I understood the truth of the hunt. I have to be as silent and steady as possible, focused on any movement around. At first I was very excited and my eyes were on every corner of the forest. I was listening and observing any sound or movement. Whether it was a deer or something more dangerous like a mercury or a bear, I told myself that if I saw a mercury, I would take it as my first pharmacy, and I would continue to avoid animals from a new predator. But over time my point of view changed. He felt bored and cold. The only thing I saw was birds or squirrels. I'm beginning to suspect that this area has more animals than my backyard in the last hour. I told myself that even if I don't catch a deer, I'll hit the first thing I see. The sun was starting to set, and the forest was getting colder and colder. I feel that this place deserves to be rid of the monsters in it. Then I heard something. The sound was coming from behind the trees, a large thing moving with difficulty and walking as if it were upset. I knew it was a big thing, but when I saw the giant deer appear in front of me about 50 feet away, I was shocked. I tried to adjust the gun, but while I was excited and my hands were icy, I was very terrified. My hands were shaking. I decided to wait until closer. Suddenly I heard a movement next to me, and I saw a second deer, and the two of them were walking in the direction of each other as if they were coming to meet me. I preferred to watch them as they approached until they stayed about 20 feet away. Finally, they were close. I can beat them with confidence. But right now my nerves were a mess. I couldn't prove Eddie. I tried to control myself and penetrate deeply, but the forest began to terrify me. All the birds and insects were screaming hysterically. Even the squirrels were screaming. There was a cold wind behind the gazelle. It chilled me to the point that it entered my bones. The entire forest was making sounds as if it was going to collapse on top of me. I tried to ignore the voices and I looked again through the rifle's muzzle and I started thinking, who am I going to shoot at? First the big deer or the little deer? I looked at the big deer, then at the deer, then at the back of the big deer, and I saw something. I will never forget her sight. There was a dark shape between them. It was almost 6 months old, but I felt her look on me. It was terribly long, but because of the sunlight that was setting, I couldn't see any clear details. It was shaped like a black piece on a starry lens. I said to myself, 10 is not real. I tried to press the trigger while pointing the gun at the big deer, but the gun got stuck and did not hit. At that moment, I felt as if the entire forest was collapsing above the 2 deer, a bus and my side, and the strange shape that was behind them began to walk towards me, and he was bringing darkness and light with him. My nerves collapsed and I ran out. Malkuk left everything behind me. I couldn't look behind me and I couldn't see if this need was running behind me or not. I was running at full speed until I reached the fork in the road. I found my father waiting for me there and he asked me what happened. I tried to tell him what I saw, but he remembered that I was afraid of the deer. He insisted that I go back with him so that we could get the gun. But the problem was that I didn't put the red ribbon on the cottage again, and we couldn't find him before night fell. We had to go back home. I refused to go to the house again after that. This was very frustrating for my parents. He would go to the forest all season, try to find the cottage and return the gun, but he could not find it. He always told me that the reason was, but he did not understand what he saw. There was something in this forest that did not want me to kill the deer, and I did not know what could have happened if the gun had not been stuck, and I hoped that my father had never encountered this thing. I took my wife and children to my family's farm in the countryside. They have a very large land and my children love to play in it, and my wife's beautiful house. She wants us to move and live in it. The only problem on this trip was that my wife decided to let them stay with us on the weekend. I love my wife, but I hated her mother for only a few hours, and she strangled me to the point that I couldn't bear to stay around them. I don't know how to sleep all night around 4 a.m. I decided to go fishing like this without notice. I wasn't even interested in catching something or setting fire to something. I wanted to run away from my mother-in-law, and that's it. I always take my equipment with me when I go to my family's farm in case I feel like I want to go out in the basket and hunt or go camping. So I removed the equipment and wrote to my wife a note saying that I was going out. I took my father's old rifle and went out into the forest before dawn. I walked until I reached one of the huts. I used to hunt from it when I was young. I went up and settled down, but I quickly began to feel sleepy, so I said I would sleep a little until the day came. But suddenly I woke up to a very strange sound, like I had never heard before. I couldn't tell if it was the sound of an animal hanging or someone laughing. The sounds of betrayal seemed to come out of the interior of a flower. I stood quietly and looked outside. The dawn was beginning to break. There was a little light in it. It shows the need. I caught a glimpse of something through the view a little away, but I saw it for 1 second before it hid behind a tree. I could not believe myself, but what I saw was similar to the sons of Adam. I preferred to return and wait for it to come out again. I didn't want to scream, because if it was really something dangerous, we are afraid. I preferred to wait until the day came out completely and nothing happened. I said to myself, surely I was hairless due to lack of sleep and could be a sick animal. He climbed up a tree to protect himself. At that time I was starting to feel hungry, so I turned on the small stove he had inside the hut. I know that nothing is safe and that the smell of food might scare the deer, but I didn't care about anything other than the prosecution alone. I used to bring with me some nuts, some instant tea, and some soup from my parents. I put the water to heat up for tea. I started eating nuts. Bujaz clatters. Heidi was still hearing the sounds outside the water. It was still not there. It was still hot when I heard the sound of movement outside, and the sound was something big. I grabbed the gun and looked out the window, but I couldn't see anything in that direction. I said, maybe I was moving loudly or the smell of gas. I thought it was going away, but seconds later, I heard the same voice again. This time it was closer, but on the other hand, look at the second one. There's no need either. I'm starting to feel like I'm being bullied. The gun came down and I took a step away from the guard, and suddenly I heard the voice of his brother at the door. I looked outside this time and there was actually something outside, but it wasn't exactly what I expected. About 30 feet away there was an old man. He was looking at me from behind the trees and smiling, but he didn't have a ear in his skin, but his skin was still red and puffy. His skin was gray and greasy, and he didn't have any hair on it. A little light gray hair. This view made me so excited that I was skiing. I fell on my back and the hot water and nuts fell on the floor of the hut. I quickly got up and turned off the stove before it burned in the whole world. And in this Swanee, the old man was standing near me, frozen. His appearance was much more terrifying. And his clothes, he looked like a skeleton and was dressed, but the police are intermittent and not clean. I started to move quickly to reach the gun, expecting it to attack me, but suddenly he threw himself on the ground and started eating all the nuts that were pressed on the ground like a dog. I sat in the corner and held the gun while I watched him collect every nut and ripen it quickly. I can't believe what I see. I kept asking myself, what is this being, the sons of Adam, an animal or anything else? My turn will not come after the meal is over, and of course after everything on earth is finished. He raised his head and looked at me and started crawling on me. And he's a bug opener. It makes the same strange noises I've heard before. I was terrified. I grabbed the soup can next to me and opened it quickly. He threw it in front of him. The man smelled it. He extended his tongue inside it as he licked it to leave a mark on it. Omen of a minute, he drank the whole soup and licked the can until it remained perfectly clean. It was a very disgusting sight. When I understood that he was going to ask for food again and I didn't have anything, I took advantage of him because he was still busy, and I ran away from the cottage. I grabbed the gun and gave him everything and preferred to run until I reached the farm. I told myself that I would deal with my mother-in-law more merciful than I do. I know this man. What was he going to do if I didn't have food? I told my family about what happened, and I contacted the mayor of the country, but they all laughed at me as if he were joking with the sheriffs. They walked around the house, but Kayush has not found any trace of this man to this day. I have nightmares about what I saw. I wonder if I hadn't brought food, would it have been my turn on the menu? Does this man live in the woods, around my family's farm? All I know is I'm never going back there again. To know the real answer,